Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to the first review of the 12 classics that I want to read in 2023. If you follow my channel, you probably have seen the video I made a week or two or something back, or 2 weeks back, about a list of 12 classics that I decided to read in 2023, one a month. I will leave a complete list, of course, in the description. And what I decided to do is that I will review each one at the end of the month after I read it. I also said in that video that I would love for you to join in with one or two or all of the 12 to read along with me. There's no Goodreads group, there's no Voxer chat, but if you can read along, you can, when I make my review video at the end of the month, you can then comment. And what I will also do at the end of each month, so today is the 25th, I will choose, I have the 11 left, I have written the titles down. I've this little bowl. Yes, this is my fruit bowl normally. And I will just pick one for the next month because I couldn't really decide on a schedule. And I think if I announce it at the end of the month for the next month, you have the whole month to get the book from the library. They're all classics, so I probably guess they are either available for free on Gutenberg or Script, or you can get them from the library if you want to read along. So that's my plan. Didn't quite work for January because I announced the book way too late for probably any of you to join in. But the book for January was this one, The Bondswoman's Narrative by Hannah Crafts. This is a former library copy, so sorry for the glare. So what I will do is I will review this one. If you haven't read it yet and want to read it, you might want to skip this video. I don't think there will be many spoilers, but maybe a little bit. So if you don't want to be spoiled and still want to read it, probably save this video for later. And then at the end of the video, I will just, pick one red piece of paper with the name of the next book for February. So this novel by Hannah Crafts was actually, it was written in the 1850s, let's put it like that, but it was never published at that time. It was discovered by Henry Louis Gates Jr., an Oxford scholar of African-American literature in the 1990s, and at an auction. And he bought the manuscript, which was cloth bound, if I remember correctly, but it was unpublished. So he had it authenticated in terms of the year that it was written, and with ink analysis and what have you, it could be authenticated that it was actually written in the mid-19th century. Henry Louis Gates also tried to find out something about Hannah Crafts, who is not only the author, but her main protagonist in the autobiographical, that's what we assume, autobiographical novel is also called Hannah. So Henry Louis Gates tried to find out something about this supposedly black slave who wrote this book in the 1850s. He could not really find anything. He did find some reference to people in the novel that were mentioned that she, quote unquote, worked for. So people who bought her, especially one family, the Wheeler family. So we don't know for sure who Hannah Crafts was. Henry Louis Gates assumes she is indeed a black former slave, but we don't know for sure. So that's the background of the book. And like I said, this is kind of, if we assume Hannah Crafts was a black slave in the 19th century in the US. This is an autobiographical novel about her childhood, her upbringing, how she was able to learn to read, and then her various adventures, quote unquote, because it is kind of an adventure novel. I mean, I was expecting probably a really anti-slavery novel, and I don't think it is, because Hannah Crafts doesn't really question slavery as such. She tells us about her hardships when she, as a slave, she was a house slave, quote unquote, when she was treated badly. But for me, in the end, it was more, the purpose of the book, if it had been published, it was probably geared towards a white female audience. Thank you, Courtney, my buddy reader, Courtney. I will leave a link to her channel down below. She pointed that out, that if the novel had been published, it would have been geared towards that audience. And the idea was, I think, more to tell people you should treat your slaves nicely. At least that is my impression of Hannah. So she tells us about her first employment and the lady there, and there is a secret. There is some similarity with, I didn't find that out myself, but that's in the introduction. There is some similarity with Charles Dickens' Bleak House, one of the lawyers in Bleak House. Did I say Bleak House? Bleak House. One of the lawyers in Bleak House really feeds off his client's secrets. In particular, one lady, the lady of the estate, the main estate in the novel, and she has a dark secret. She has an illegitimate child when she was young, and the lawyer knows that, and he uses that to blackmail the lady. And there is a similar lawyer character in this book. So that's probably why you read in reviews that the book was influenced by Charles Dickens' Bleak House. I don't know about that, but there is indeed this one lawyer who is quite similar to the character to one of the lawyer characters in Bleak House. Anyway, so we learn about that, the Dark Lady's secret, and they have to escape, and then there are lots of adventures in terms of what happens to Hannah and her mistress, as she calls her, Lizzie, when they escape, and until, the kind of, spoiler alert, happy ending towards the end of the book. So I expected something a little different, which is absolutely not the book's fault. My expectations is not, the book's fault. But I also thought Hannah as a character, she was not, she didn't resonate with me. At times, she didn't feel authentic. I felt at times that she wrote, the way she wrote her story, and especially kind of not dwelling on, the abuse and the hardship and things like that, that she was really writing what the audience might want to read, that slavery is not that bad as long as you treat your slaves well. She also had this really internalized elitism about being a house slave and being, quote unquote, better than the slaves who had to work on the field. So it was an interesting book for me, more than an enjoyable read. And I mean, it's never enjoyable to read about slavery, but I think you know what I mean. It was interesting because it was recently discovered, and now it's thought to be, I think it was first published in 2002 after the authentication, and now it's, supposedly it's the first novel by a female slave in the US in the 19th century. So from that perspective, it's interesting. And our point of view, of course, we can see the horrors of slavery, that even if you treat your slaves well, you're still part of the system, the slavery as a system. So from that perspective, it was interesting. It looks really big, but there is a huge introduction by Henry Louis Gates, about 70 pages. So the novel as such is about 250 pages. So if you're interested more from a historical point of view to read supposedly the first novel by a former slave, a female former slave, I can certainly recommend that. But I just didn't really, the main character just did not really resonate with me as authentic and honest. I know it's fiction, but I think you know what I mean. So anyway, so this was the first of the list of 12. And then obviously we have 11 left, and this one was the biggest. So this is the pile of the 11. And like I said, I just couldn't make up my mind about the order, whether I should read them just chronologically. But then, it was a bummer that I didn't start chronologically. So I thought, I'm just gonna, randomly pick one. So we'll just move this around so that you trust me that I didn't see which one. And then we'll just pick one. Yes, this one. And let's see which one this is. I hope I can read this with the glasses on. The Story of an African Farm is the next one, by Olive Schreiner, I think. Let's see, The Story of an African Farm. Yes, here we have it. Olive Schreiner was a South African author, also a white author, but she supposedly this book is also highly autobiographical, and it's supposed to be critical about the treatment of Black people in South Africa, and the book was first published in she lived 1855 until 1920, and I think this book was published in 1883. Yes, in 1883. So it's a little later than The Bondswoman was written, and from a different perspective, but this will be the February pick. I hope you will join me with this one. If not, I'm not going to force you, obviously, to join me, but I would love for people to join me. I hope you like this setup with the 12 classics that I want to read, a review each month towards the end of the month, and then the pick for the next month. I will also leave the book I picked in the description box. So if you don't, it doesn't make sense to say that at the end of the video, because if you hear that now, you have watched the video. But anyway, I will leave it the title in the description box for the people who don't want to watch the review because they still want to read the book. So that's how we do it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments whether you've read a Bondswoman narrative or whether you plan on reading it. Thank you, Courtney, for reading it with me. I'm looking forward to all of your comments as always, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.